Hey everyone, and welcome to Cooking Companion TV. I'm Jenna Edwards, and this is a copycat recipe of the Johnnycake dish from Neptune, Oyster in Boston, Massachusetts. Johnnycakes or cornmeal pancakes, and these have been topped with honey butter and smoked fish combined with creme fraiche. At the restaurant, they serve it with a little dollop of caviar too. It's a very smart combination of sweet, savory, bitter, and umami. Now, a quick plug for my membership content here on YouTube. If you're super into eggs, I have exclusive content just for my channel members. Right now, it's at $3 a month for videos all about how to cook the best eggs, and it's constantly refreshed with new content. The link to find out more is below, but give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Let's get right to it. Starting with the easy part, using one fillet of smoked trout or bluefish if you can find it. Remove the skin and bones. I even removed the outer skin that develops from the smoking process. I think it just makes a smoother end result. That should give us about half a cup of fish to stir in 1.5 tablespoons of creme fraiche. Now, creme fraiche is still pretty new to the US, so it might not be easy to find, but it's cultured cream, and there's really nothing like it in the US. If you go to look for it at a grocery store, it will probably be with the cheeses like mascarpone, not with the sour cream and the cottage cheese. You could try sour cream, but also you can make creme fraiche. That may be worth it to you because it's a stellar ingredient. And I recently learned that the French don't use heavy cream that often, or at least not the US version of heavy cream. They mostly use creme fraiche in everything. So it gives a texture and a flavor that's indiscernible and irreplaceable in sauces and dips and spreads. And you're about to see a lot more of it on my channel, that's for sure. Anyhow, pack it in because you want to make sure that the fish and the creme fraiche stick together for how you'll plate it. I'd save this next part for last when you actually make it, but this is the honey butter mixture. I'm demoing a 1-to-1 ratio of honey to butter, but it gets a little thick as it cools. So I think maybe a 2-to-1 ratio of honey to butter so it stays thin is better. You just want to melt the butter, not boil it. So, as soon as it's liquid, remove it from the heat, stir it up, and drizzle it over the Johnnycakes. We also need 5 to 6 chives per serving to sprinkle over it all. And it's winter in New York. I cannot find chives right now. So I'm shredding and chopping green onion, which I'm going to add to the honey butter to help the astringent flavor. Okay, let's get into the Johnnycakes, which is pretty straightforward, even if it is labor intensive. I have several notes on what I do differently next time. But for now, let's mix together 1 cup of flour with 1/4 cup of semolina. A suitable substitute for semolina is more flour, although I think you're better off doing cornmeal. And then we need half a cup of fine cornmeal, 3 tablespoons of sugar, and we'll use buttermilk. So if you used a powdered buttermilk, you'll add that in with the dry ingredients. We need 2 cups of buttermilk, so that's half a cup of buttermilk powder. And finally, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. For the wet ingredients, we need 1 large egg with 2 tablespoons of oil. Whisk this together thoroughly. I recommend a hearty whisk for a solid minute to incorporate all those egg white bits. And then add the 2 cups of buttermilk. For the powder users, we use water. I actually used 1 3/4 cups of water, saving the final 1/4 cup to thin things out if needed, which I did not need. Now we combine the wet and dry ingredients. The wet ingredients should be in the bigger bowl so that you can add the dry ingredients in portions. Here's one of my notes to make this better than my demoed version. I suggest sifting the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients so you don't have to stir out so many clumps. You can do this with just a fine mesh strainer to separate out the clumps. You basically want to fold in the dry ingredients rather than like stirring or mixing, so you don't activate the gluten in the flour from active stirring. This allows for a lighter, fluffier texture. If you have to stir it a lot to thin out the clumps and you activate the gluten, you get a more dense batter and therefore a more dense pancake. For cooking the Johnnycakes, we'll start out by melting a couple tablespoons of butter in a large cast iron pan, and then pouring in 1/3 cup of batter at a time. I found that it spreads itself out pretty evenly if I let the batter pour into one spot. The heat should be set at medium-high. We're kind of frying the Johnnycakes. I think a traditional recipe shallow fries the cakes in a lot of bacon fat. So we want to see active bubbles along the edges because this helps the edges crisp up and turn dark brown, which gives a very valuable flavor and texture to our dish that we definitely want to go for. So we cook over medium-high heat for 3 minutes on one side and 2 minutes on the other side. Now, between cakes, you may need to add another half tablespoon or so of butter so they brown and don't blacken. This batter recipe makes about 8 cakes, so that's a long time making cakes. I might recommend freezing half of the batter if you know you aren't serving a lot or just trying to do this at 2 pans at once. Because they are so thin, when I plated for the video, I plated 2 cakes at a time, so my 8 pancakes actually turned into 4 servings. At Neptune's, they are very light and a little thicker. The recipes I used for this were very vague for this particular technique. But again, getting a crispy edge is important from what I remember. When you serve, we will drizzle on that thin honey butter and then take about a tablespoon of the smoked fish and creme fraiche mixture and place it on top. And then a little teaspoon dollop of more creme fraiche and then top it with caviar if you happen to have it. Give it a sprinkle of the chopped chives if you have them or the green onions. For the leftover fish and creme fraiche, you can stir in more creme fraiche and basically make a really tasty fish dip with just 2 ingredients. Have so much fun with this. And if you're ever in Boston, go to Neptune's in the off hours because it's super, super busy for this dish and fabulous oysters. Get the ingredient list below or at cookingcompaniontv.com/Neptune Johnnycake. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe to this channel for more demos just like this. I'm Jenna Edwards. Thanks for watching.